Hi everyone, it's Kane here. Hope you're all safe and well. Now this is a short review to share my initial thoughts after upgrading the gearbox mechanism on the front two motors of my DOF Reality H3 rig. It's worth saying I'm a customer of DOF Reality, and my only contact with Igor from DOF Reality has been purchasing equipment, the rig, and him helping me out with any queries I have, which are usually self-inflicted. You get pretty much instant response from Igor, and to me that seems pretty good customer service. Now, down to my rig. So it's evolved a lot and now has approximately 450 hours on it. I fly it solely for flight simulation, and this involves flying online in mainly World War II service in DCS. The choice of server that we always go on is 4YA's World War II setup, so if you like excitement, action and a really good laugh, head there online or in the Discord channels, and I'll put a link in the notes below. Now to the gearboxes. So the main difference I saw in the gearboxes is that it transitioned from an enclosed gear arrangement to a ball screw mechanism. One of the main points for me here was the potential fix for the standard play that you see in the normal enclosed gearbox. It was more of an annoyance knowing it was there than something that ruined the experience of owning a H3. However, I was able to feel the balance of the rig pivot through this as the backlash was taken up in the gearboxes. Now this is useful when ensuring your rig is balanced properly, but not so when you're transitioning through manoeuvres and you can feel that backlash getting taken up. Now I ordered the kit through DOF and it only took a few weeks to come. And this was quick, saying it was from Ukraine to Singapore, but this was prior to the current situation in the country. I paid $400 for the kit. Upon opening the kit, the mechanism was really well packed and including all the tooling, the bolts, and also a different subframe to mount the motors to, as they sit in a slightly different position. Igor from DOF Reality then supplied a video that walks you through the process of how to fit it, along with a slightly hypnotic soundtrack that I'll leave it to yourselves to hear if you do decide to go with this upgrade. Fitting them was simple, with needing to connect the current sensors in the subframe mount. I then propped the rig up to stop it from moving around and was able to get the two motors and the previous subframe all out in one piece. The video that DOF Reality supplies then walks you through switching over the current sensors, motors and fittings from the old to the new gearboxes. If you can build the H3, then this should be a relatively easy and enjoyable experience. Now I was initially concerned that it would need a firmware flash on the system, but the SMC3 standard sign test confirmed all was working as it should when I completed the installation of the gearbox and the coupler. The motors were then bolted up onto the new frame and then slid into the rig and secured in place, and this was all done without removing my seat from the rig. After connecting up the motors to the toe links, I didn't have to change any of the other mechanisms or ranges to get the rig in the position I wanted it, so this was basically just read across straight from before. One of the first things I noticed that there was no play in the gearboxes at all on the front, absolutely nothing. Now it's a lot more solid than the previous gearboxes, which I think from new did have a small amount of backlash just down to the design. And one thing I did wonder was would this stay the same over time? Now booted up the system, and first impressions when I was flying was the smoothness was drastically improved. The transition between manoeuvres had lost the tipping point that I used to feel previously, and simply went from one manoeuvre to another without that pivot point, without that balance that I felt previously. Now the feeling's direct, it's very reactive, so for example if you're firing cannons, if you're landing or crashing, it's still got that instant jolt that you had with the previous motors. So even though it's turning that screw that you can see in the video, it is pretty much instant and is relatively silent, to be fair. It moves really smoothly. I do monitor motor temps really closely as well, and what I've seen is there within the variation that I saw from the previous gearboxes, and also that I see in the ambient temperatures in the room that I play in, because it's a lot hotter in Singapore than in the UK. My main takeaway here is that the new mechanism of the upgraded gearbox isn't putting any more load on the motors than previous, when I ensured my rig was really carefully balanced. And a point to note currently is that the balancing program will need to be modified for these new gearboxes, however that's still in whip with DOF Reality. I have the toe links in the second hole along the lever arm, And a note here is that I did have to slightly modify the upper frame to make sure that it cleared the motor. This just involved filing a small amount off the toe link corner just to make sure it did clear the gearbox, but I do get a lot more movement than if I just had them in the closest hole to the gearbox. Now on the version that I have, there's not enough clearance in the upper rig to the motors to be able to have them in the furthermost end mount hole. I've fed this back to Igor as well for any consideration. So now finally, I've got a minimum of 50 hours with the new motors, and I've got to say I'm really glad that I went for them. I still have no play in the gearboxes on the front. Motor temps are still really consistent, and I've got to say I'm just really enjoying them. It's been very much a plug and play experience with the upgrade. I'd say it's very worthwhile. I'd recommend it to anyone with a H3 or P3. And whilst not an absolute necessity, it has been a step change improvement over the previous versions that I had installed for that circa 450 hours. So any questions on availability, please contact Igor at DOF, but feel free to let me know any questions that you may have. Take care, hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you soon.